We're going.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's webinar regarding our phase-in of second grade learners to in-person education. My name is Ben Small, Superintendent of Central Valley School District, and we're glad that you can join us tonight. If you've joined us on previous webinars, you will see some repeat content, but you may have unique questions for your second grade students as well. We continue to work diligently with the Spokane Regional Health Department to phase in our youngest of learners, not youngest of learners, but elementary learners as we move forward. And doing that to keep our students, staff, and our community safe as we move forward. Tonight with me, I have a couple of our leadership team members from our district office. I'd like to introduce Mr. Tim Newtonboom, Associate Superintendent of Learning and Teaching, and Mr. Eric Hoagland, Executive Director of Elementary Learning and Teaching. At this point in time, I'll turn it over to our principals to introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Nicole Karras, the proud principal at Adams Elementary School, and we're looking very much, okay, let's see if I can talk. We're looking forward to welcoming our second grade learners back to the in-person learning.
I'm Lori Johnson, principal at Broadway Elementary, and we're looking forward to welcoming our second grade Broadway stars.
Good evening. I'm Cindy Sothen, principal at Chester, and I appreciate you all taking time tonight to join us. We can't wait to see our second grade Coyotes coming this week.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Lindsay Kent. I'm proud to be the principal at Green Acres Elementary. Our second grade team and I are so excited to welcome our Roadrunners back to in-person learning.
Good evening, second grade families. My name is Kim Kyle, and I'm the principal at Liberty Creek Elementary. We are super excited to welcome back our final grade, our second grade Explorers.
Good evening. My name is Jen Teskey. I'm the principal at Liberty Lake Elementary, where we have our 3rd through 5th grade learners, and we cannot wait to have students back in our building.
Hello, my name is Scott Krenzel. It's my privilege to be the principal at McDonald Elementary. We're looking forward to rounding up some Mustangs, second grade Mustangs.
Good evening. I'm Mandy Rain, the proud principal of Opportunity Elementary, home of the Pandas, and we're excited to see our second graders back.
Good evening. I'm Sasha DeArmond, the principal of Ponderosa Elementary, and we are so excited to get our second grade Wildcats back this week.
Good evening. My name is Alicia Alsacker. I am the principal at Progress Elementary, and our second grade team can't wait to welcome our Panthers back to school.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Jeff Dufresne. I have the privilege of being the principal at Riverbend Elementary, and we too are excited to have our Otters back.
Hi, everyone. I'm Stan Kipp, principal at South Pines Elementary School. The staff here at South Pines is very excited to have our second graders back. Looking forward to seeing you soon.
Good evening. My name is Walt Clemens. I'm the principal at Summit School, and we can't wait to have our second graders back in our building.
Good evening. I'm Travis Howell. I am the principal at Sunrise Elementary, and we are very excited to see our second grade superstars back here real soon.
Hello, second grade families. I am Melanie Kilgore, the principal at University Elementary, and the second grade teachers and all of our staff are looking forward to welcoming your second graders back later this week.
Thank you, principals. My name is Alex Evans, and I am the moderator for the webinar this evening. Tonight, our principals will go through what you can do to help your students have a smooth transition back into the classroom. They'll also cover the safety expectations from the school district. Then we'll play a video that shows what it's like for your students to check in at school every day. One of the principals will talk through the phased-in approach that the school district is taking. And then the principals will talk through a typical day of learning, going through what to expect in the mornings and afternoons every day. Then they'll talk about what your child may need at this time and things that you can expect that your changes that your child will be going through right now. And then following that, we'll take question and answers. So if you look at the bottom of your Zoom screen, you'll see a button that says Q&A. And if you click that button, you'll see a place where you can fill in a field. That's where you'll ask questions. We'll be seeing all of the questions that come in, and we'll attempt to answer as many as we can tonight live for everyone on the webinar. So again, just use that function either during the presentation or after as we go through the questions. So I'll kick it back to Mrs. Kilgore.
Thank you, Ms. Evans. And thank you, second grade parents, for joining us tonight. We really appreciate you taking the time to participate in this webinar in order to ensure that your second grader is ready to start school this week. As we get ready to start in-person learning with your children, we in the Central Valley School District recognize that you are your child's first teacher and truly the expert in knowing your own child. The things that you say and do at home to help your child get prepared have a tremendous impact on how ready they are and how comfortable they feel about coming back to school. So thank you for taking your time this week to help your child get ready to come back to the classroom. There are some simple things that you can do in the next few days to help your student be ready to feel comfortable and confident about coming back for second grade. First, please have your child begin wearing their mask if they haven't yet had practice with that. Just short periods of time over the next few days, making sure that their mask is comfortable and fits well over both their nose and mouth. If your child doesn't have a lot of practice with that, perhaps allowing them to choose a style, color, or even design might make it more All students will be required to wear their cloth mask at all times, other than at snacks and meal times and when they're outdoors. So practicing now can help make this an easier transition for school. Second, please help your child practice good hand washing, helping your second grader to use warm water, enough soap, and to scrub for at least 20 seconds before rinsing. A great way to gauge the time while washing is to have your child sing the ABCs or happy birthday. Talk to your child about the times that they can expect to be washing hands at school, before they eat, after using the restroom, and after they come inside from recess. Each day when your child comes to school, he or she should bring the completed student symptom attestation checklist ticket. You should have gotten a pre-printed packet of these when you picked up materials at your school. Each day we'll ask that you attest to your child's health prior to sending them to school. If your child is symptom-free, then they can enter the building when they arrive. If your child has any of the symptoms listed on that attestation ticket, we ask that you please keep them home from school. Finally, please let your child know that they will be having their temperature checked when they arrive. All of us use touchless thermometers that read your child's temperature from about an inch away from their forehead or temple. It's really quick and easy, but it might seem surprising or strange if you haven't prepared them for that ahead of time. So your second graders will certainly notice that things at school are a little different now than they were as kindergartners and first graders. However, I know that all of our second grade teachers are truly experts in teaching children new rules and expectations, and then reminding of them, reteaching them, practicing and praising when kids are following those expectations. So in no time at all, I know that the new will just seem routine and your students will settle right back in.
Thank you, Mrs. Kilgore. Good evening, second grade parents. As the principal of Sunrise Elementary, I want to thank you for taking time tonight to help us help your child be successful at school when they return in person. The safety and well-being of our students is our utmost priority. We will be taking student temperatures daily before exiting the car at valet or immediately upon exiting the bus. We will also require each student to bring a signed attestation form to school with them each day. Students must have this form signed by a parent or guardian attesting that they do not have any COVID symptoms. If a student arrives at school without this form, the parent will be called and asked the questions over the phone. If all is good, only then will the student be allowed to go into their classroom. If a student is showing any symptoms or has an elevated temperature, we will have them wait in a safe location to check their temp. If after rechecking the temp and it remains high, the parent will be notified and the student will need to go home. If the student's temperature is 99.3 or lower, they may proceed to class. Our district has an extensive COVID protocol that each school is following to help make sure the safety of our students and staff. If there is a positive case of COVID in your child's classroom, or if a student is sent home with COVID symptoms, parents will be notified. Our school custodian teams also have a strict cleaning protocol that they follow that includes frequent cleaning and disinfecting of high-touch areas. Again, we want to make sure that students have a great time at school. Being prepared with their signed attestation slip, checking temperatures, and ensuring strict cleaning protocols are followed will help your child have a safe and successful school experience. We will now watch a video to give an example of what the check-in procedure will look like.
We will show you our process for students entering our schools safely. You're helping us be able to have our students learn in person in a safe manner at our schools. We couldn't do all of this without you. Make sure the student has their mask and their attestation ticket before exiting the car. Then they will be ready to move to the coned area to enter the building.
Come on, everybody. Get your tickets.
Be sure to remind the students to use hand sanitizer before going to class.
Morning, how are you?
With your help, we will move forward safely together.
I'm Lori Johnson, principal at Broadway Elementary School, and I know I speak for all of us when I say we are really excited to welcome our second graders back to school. In order to make sure your child feels safe and supported, and to make sure we're effectively teaching all the new safety routines and procedures to every student, teachers will welcome half of your child's class on Wednesday and the other half on Thursday. Your child's first day will be either Wednesday, November 4th, or Thursday, November 5th. If you haven't already heard which day your child will be starting, your school will reach out to you soon with this schedule. Starting with smaller groups or cohorts like this allows the teacher to make a connection with your child, create a warm and welcoming environment, and set kids up for success by teaching them routines and safety procedures in smaller groups. Beginning on Friday, November 6th, and continuing from that day on, all the students will be together in class. Even when all students are there, our class sizes were created based on square footages in the classrooms to maximize learning and to be safe with the proper social distancing. We know how important it is to get our second graders off to a great start as they resume school in person. We're really excited to have our second graders back at school and extend our partnership with our great families. Now let's hand it over to Scott Krentel, principal at McDonald Elementary, to tell us a little about what the start of a typical school day will look like this year.
Thank you, Dr. Johnson. Well, the kids finally arrive at school. They're so excited. What we like to do is call the kids down distanced through the hallways, and the teachers are waiting for them at the doorways and greeting them into the classroom. As they come into the classroom, they get greeted and they settle in. There's not a typical, like a normal day of school where you start on time at like 9 o'clock. It's more of a soft start where kids will enter in and get settled for the day. This will allow the teachers to make sure they have everything that they need and that they're settled, and allow the process of checking the kids in to happen. While they're waiting for the day to start, they'll probably have some activities at their desk, maybe something to work on to prepare for their day. Once the kids have all arrived and the class is ready, the teacher will start with a morning meeting. And during these morning meetings, it's a time to go over some social emotional learning, talk about how we're doing, maybe set some goals and readiness for the day. And then they often will go over a calendar, look at the schedule, and talk about some of the goals for the day as far as the academics as well. After that, the teacher pivots into some story time and starts some language arts lessons. And sometimes, most of the time, it's so fun, it's seamless, the kids don't even realize that the academics have started because the story kind of takes them away and the teacher uses those stories to teach. After those lessons have happened, it's usually a time for an outside movement break. This will give the kids a chance to get outside, get some fresh air, and get a chance to take their masks off for a few minutes and exercise their bodies. Then they'll come back into the classroom for the rest of the day. Mrs. Alsacker, would you like to tell us what happens next?
Yes, thank you so much, Mr. Krentel. So after our reading lesson and our outdoor movement break, our second grade students will transition into reading centers. This year, rather than moving throughout the classroom, each student will receive their own personalized bin with all the materials that they will need in order to be successful with the variety of authentic learning tasks. Our reading centers are built around a literacy framework that instills building independence, highly engaged readers, writers, and learners, and provides teachers with the time and structure to meet for small group instruction. Some examples of reading centers could be reading books from their book bins, word work, sight word practice, or working on writing from a previous lesson taught. Traditionally, we would have 3 to 4 students in a small group. However, this year things will look different. Teachers may work individually with students or possibly work with 2 students at a small table where there is appropriate social distancing. After reading centers, the class will head outdoors for a movement break. During this time, students will be able to remove their mask and play in a designated area such as the big toy, swings, and out in the field. Our supervisors will teach them a variety of games that they can play with their classmates to help support their social skills. Once our movement break is over, we will head in for lunch. This year, students will eat lunch in their classroom with their friends. Our nutrition staff, custodial crew, teachers, and supervisors are ready and prepared to help serve our students as we know that they are going to be hungry. Please know that this portion may look slightly different from school to school. After lunch, we will move into our whole group writing lesson where students will participate and engage in the writing process. The teacher demonstrates and models the lesson of the day, and then the students will have the opportunity to try it on their own. As students are working on their writing, the teacher will conference with individual students on their piece of writing. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Kent to share the rest of our school day.
Well, thank you, Mrs. Alsacker. Good evening. I'll walk you through what a typical afternoon looks like in second grade. It's important to remember that the afternoon in second grade often has a slower pace compared to the morning. We know that our students are still rebuilding their stamina for learning. A large portion of the afternoon is typically focused on the area of math. This math block incorporates a whole group math lesson, as well as individualized work and interactive tubs that are designed to elicit multiple problem-solving strategies from students. This will also provide opportunities for students to reason about the relationships in numbers and make connections in math. After math class, they may head outdoors for another mask-free movement break. Students will stay in their assigned cohort outside in accordance with the Spokane Regional Health District guidelines. Once our movement break is over, we'll head inside to wrap up the rest of our afternoon. Teachers may choose to revisit being a reader or making meaning, social studies, or science before preparing for a soft closure activity that could include reading, individual activities, writing, word sorts, and art. Before the day's end, we'll meet together as a class to discuss the things that happened throughout the day, to reflect on the things that made us curious, as well as to continue to build our positive classroom community and connections with one another. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Rain, who will be talking to us a little bit about our approach with learners in our current setting.
Thank you, Mrs. Kent. Good evening, second grade families. We're very excited that you're with us tonight. We've learned a few things about taking care of kids during this time with our kindergarten and first grade students being back in school. And we are now super excited to safely welcome your second grade child to school. Since this year is so different, we need to change things up a bit from what we would normally do. We plan to take a safe, warm, but socially distanced approach to loving on your second grade student. This year, we'll be using a lot of visual cues to remind kids to keep social distance and to keep their masks on in order to keep everyone safe. Teachers will do this by providing songs, reading social stories, and making learning about new procedures fun. Even though we can't hug your child while they're at school, which is one of our favorite things to do, we are planning many different ways to show them love, encouragement, and to positively reinforce safe and school-appropriate behaviors. When your child follows directions or is making good choices or working hard, you can expect that the teachers will give them thumbs up, encourage them, and give them some positive words. We wave, we smile, we make eye contact, and we wait to show we're listening. We bend down to their level even when we're 6 feet away. This lets kids know that they are supported, cared about, and what they have to share is important. We show positive body language like waving to them in the building, nodding our heads, words of encouragement, and tell them we're so happy to see them and hear their ideas. We want you to also know that we are attentive to their comfort level, and if they're reluctant, we let them watch and listen until they're ready to join the activity. You can be assured that our second grade teachers are exceptional at understanding children's academic, social, and emotional needs, and will support your child through their in-person school experience. We cannot wait to see our second graders at the end of this week. And I'd love to turn it over to Mrs. DeArmond to talk about a typical fall.
Thank you, Dr. Rain. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Usually our second graders come into school knowing routines and procedures. In essence, they know how to do school. This year may be a little bit different for our second graders. The school procedures that they are used to are totally different. Also, although they were engaging and learning in the spring and are engaged online right now, it's different from being in the school building full time. It'll take a little time to build that stamina for school and to get used to the new procedures. However, just like our kindergartners and first graders, we have no doubt that they will adapt and do fabulous. Just know it might take some time to get used to being back in school. Also, it might be hard for your child to leave you. Our kids have been with us and our grandparents and caregivers for nearly 8 months. They might have some tears and be sad to not have that time anymore. The best thing we can do as parents is to listen, love, and encourage our second graders. We need to acknowledge their feelings and at the same time be so positive and just keep encouraging them. For the most part, our kindergartners and first graders have done an amazing job with the transition. We expect our second graders to do the same. On behalf of our Central Valley School District elementary school principals, I want to thank you for being here tonight and let you know how excited we are to see our second grade friends in person this week.
Great, thank you, principals. Thank you, everyone, for all the questions that we have gotten so far. And I would just invite anyone to use that Q&A function at the bottom of your Zoom screen to send in any questions that you might have. So we have a few queued up and we'll just jump right in. Question for anyone in the group: how will you be addressing symptoms that may be just the common cold?
Well, we've had that happen a few times at South Pines Elementary, and there is a protocol that we follow, temperature checks and a whole list of symptoms. We now have what we're calling Class B symptoms and Class A symptoms, and depending on the combination of symptoms, we'll contact parents, we'll remove the child from the classroom into the health room, or if necessary, get them completely away from other kids until we can discern whether or not it's a more serious illness or not.
Thank you. If a family has multiple students and one student is at home sick, do the siblings need to stay home as well?
I'll go ahead and take this one as we move forward. If a student is exhibiting symptoms but is not COVID positive, the other students and other children in the family could still come to school. However, If your child is being tested or it has been tested positive for COVID, then all students would need to stay home and be quarantined per our quarantine procedures. We ask that you be very, very vigilant. And if you have any question whatsoever, keep your child home for the day, and then we can get those questions answered for you as you move forward. There are, as Mr. Kep said, Class B symptoms and Class A symptoms. And if your child has symptoms, they're going to be sent home. And then as you go visit your clinician, your doctor, they will look at those symptoms and then make a determination of when your child can return to school.
Thank you, Mr. Small. Some questions on buses. Could someone talk about the plan for buses, transportation for the students, and where families could find the bus schedule for the third graders? Second graders, I'm sorry.
Bus schedules are available on our website, on the Central High School District website. We are practicing social distancing on our buses. We will run our buses at 50% capacity. Students will be seated as far away from each other as we can. Within that, we will only have one student per seat, and we will run our buses with appropriate ventilation and have been advised and required to run our buses with windows down. So as we enter into a colder weather, please have your children bundle up. And we want them to stay as warm as possible while still being safe on our buses. We have to have a seating chart for every bus because if a student is positive, test positive for COVID, we have to look at their bus ridership as well to determine close contacts. So we're being very careful, not just in the classroom, but also on our buses as we proceed to in-person learning.
Thank you. There's been a lot of questions around masks and face coverings. What steps is the district taking to ensure that kids are wearing sufficient face coverings? And would that include face shields or gaiters? What are the requirements around what the face protection needs to be?
Go ahead and answer that question.
Yeah,
We encourage all of our students to wear cloth face masks as opposed to the gaiter style masks. They should fit well, and a little bit of practice with that can help you determine the best style for your child so that they can comfortably wear it while talking and participating at school. Each of the elementary schools does have extra masks on hand. So if a mask were to become uncomfortable or become soiled during the day, we have both disposable and washable, reusable masks that we can provide to your child. And of course, your students will have opportunities for taking their masks off during the day when they have meals and also when they're outside.
Can I add one more thing, Alex? I would also say that our kindergartners and first graders have done a great job while they're here at school. I think that as parents and adults, we've been super nervous about, oh, they haven't worn them all day, they're going to struggle with it. And they have been rock stars as far as wearing them all day. And I think, at least at my school, and I've heard from colleagues, that we really haven't had any problems with kids wearing them when we are asking them to during the day.
I would just add that we've been very, very successful in transitioning our kindergartners and our first graders back into school. And we've been successful because we take every one of these protocols, every one of these screening procedures very seriously. That means that we assure that there's appropriate face mask that is being worn by every student to the greatest extent that is possible. And so when we get to be really stickler about this, it is because the layers of screening and protocols that we've put into place are working, and they're eliminating spread in our schools at this point in time. And so I really want us to make sure that we form a partnership with our parents, that we have to do this well. And please partner with us, because if we do it well, we can surely make a difference to get more of our kids back into school.
Great, thank you. Some questions around quarantine. And if students are quarantining, will they be moving to virtual learning, or are there any opportunities for their continued learning while they're at home?
I'm happy to answer that. If you go on a quarantine vacation, some call it the COVID vacation or quarantine, and you're away just to take safeguards, we will work, each building will work with you and your child to make sure that we have continuity of learning. So we may toggle you to a virtual option during that time that you're at home so that you can stay up with your class and get the support so that when at the time you return that you can return seamlessly.
Thank you. And how long must someone who tested positive for COVID quarantine, even if they are asymptomatic?
It's you have to quarantine 10 days from the positive test. So if you've got a positive, when you test positive, you're quarantined for the next 10 days moving forward. If you're a close contact with somebody who has a positive COVID test, then you have to quarantine for 14 days, from your last from your last contact with that positive person.
Great, thank you. Lots of questions around food and meals. Will breakfast be served at school? And if so, what time and where does a student go for breakfast?
I can answer that, Alex. We actually have a different procedure for breakfast this school year. We're sending breakfast home with kids every afternoon so that they can eat breakfast at home before they come to school in the morning.
Great, thank you. And then also questions around lunch. Will lunch be served at school, and what does that look like? And also, are students allowed to bring their own lunch or snacks from home?
Yes, they are. And lunch is served at school. Students right now are eating in their classrooms at their desks. So the lunches are brought down to the classroom and they bring them right to them at their desk.
Great, and I know that sometimes there have been snacks and treats in classrooms before. Is that something that is still happening, and are students allowed to bring in snacks for other students?
Well, I can take that one too. We are allowing individually wrapped snacks to be shared, store-bought, individually wrapped snacks. Of course, check the allergies for your classroom, no peanut products, but yes, individually wrapped and store-bought.
Great, thank you. Now some questions around school hours and drop-off and pickup protocols. Could you please confirm the school day hours, and then also what the time frames are for drop-off and pickup each day?
I can start with that. I would like to start by saying a lot of this could potentially depend on how large your school is. So they kind of vary time-wise per school, but typical drop-off is 9:30 to 10 in the morning. And we also are allowing for grace with families knowing that they have siblings that are at different grade levels. So the older or younger students may not be logging in exactly on time. And we are aware of that as we transition students back. At Chester, we start dismissal at 2:45 until the end of the day so that parents can come at a time that is convenient for them. And we call kids down when they come, and it's a seamless end to the day.
Great, Mrs. So then just a follow-up. So what are the actual school hours for each day?
The official is 9:30 until 3:10.
Great, thank you. And are students allowed to walk or bike to and from school? And if so, can parents accompany them, or can parents walk to school to pick up their child at the end of the day?
Okay, go for it, Mr. Hoagland.
We are asking our families to use the valet and drive them as much as possible, and then also use our transportation as much as possible. In the event that there is a situation where the family may want to walk their child, then we are allowing that. Just keep in mind, though, that the parents and everybody who comes on school grounds will need to have masks and practice the 6-foot social distancing. And we are not having families come into the building. We're not having classroom volunteers. So hopefully that answers that question.
Great, thank you. And sort of to tag along with that, if there's parents who need to pick up their child to take them to an appointment or drop them off from an appointment at a time in the middle of the day, how does the parent go about doing that?
I may have answered this question in the chat, so I'll try and reiterate it here live. We would follow the standard normal procedures in which the parent would park, mask up. We always mask up now. Come to the office and use our bell system or our buzzer system to come in and let them know. The school would then call the child down, and then the parent would be able to take the child to the dentist appointment or whatever. If and when the parent brings them back, then we would ask that we do a quick recheck as they come in again. Everybody has to be masked up, and then we would bring the student back to the classroom and allow them to come back in.
Great, thank you. There's been some questions around flexibility on the options that families have chosen. So if a family is not feeling comfortable right now sending their student back into the school building, can they change their learning option at this point? And if so, how do they request to make that change?
I think the best course of action would be to contact your school's principal, talk to them about your concerns, your potential timeline, and then they'll work with us to be able to try to find some different learning options at a place where you do feel safe.
Great. All the students have Chromebooks at home with them right now. Will they still need their Chromebooks at home, or should they be bringing them back and forth to school each day or leaving them at school?
We're having our students bring their Chromebooks back and forth from home to school each day right now. Technology has always been a part of our elementary classrooms and continues to be to some degree while your children are in person, but we do want them to carry them back and forth with them in the event that they would need to stay home for any reason. That way they'll be able to access online learning from home if that's where they find themselves the next school day. So we suggest tucking them into a drawstring bag or into their backpack and carefully bringing it back and forth along with their charging cord and making sure that their Chromebook is charged when they arrive at school each day.
Great, thank you. On the Wednesday and Thursday that half the class is back in person, does the other half of the class join virtually from home, or if it's not their day in the classroom, what does that day look like for them?
So I'm happy to answer that. During that day, they would not have live instruction. They would not be logging in a school-paced model with their classroom during that day, but they certainly can access some of the online programs like MobiMax or Math. If you're option 4, Lexia Learning, they can certainly do some of those activities during that afternoon until they come in person.
Great, thank you. In inclement weather and as the temperatures get lower, where will students take their breaks, and will they be able to have breaks with their masks off indoors somewhere, or how will that be handled?
Well, one of the things I'd like to remind families, I know this is a reminder every year, whether we're in person or remote, we do have protocols for when we bring students in. And as you know, we do live in Eastern Washington, so there are probably a lot of brisk mornings that we still go outside for recess. And so we ask that you always come prepared to go outside. Once we hit that threshold, we'll have the kids come inside. And at that point, we'll have a rotation to be able to use some of our larger spaces to be able to have those mass breaks.
Could you, I think that this may have been in the presentation deck, but there's been some questions on the temperature threshold for keeping a student at home. What is that temperature that a student would need to stay home or could be sent home from school?
we would advise that anything above 99.3, that is a caution for you and that you would keep your child home. 100.4 is what we look at, but if they're above 99.3 and they come into the building, we're going to put them into a separate room and have them wait and then take their temperature again. So I think to be safe, anything above 99.3, I would be cautious and keep my child at home for the day.
Great, thank you. Will there be specialist classes like PE, music, library? And if so, what will that look like in the building? And do students need to bring tennis shoes for PE or their own instruments or anything like that?
So I'll take this one and then let the principals talk about how they're going, how maybe we'll fill in for some of this. But here's the, as we bring our students back to in-person learning and do so safely, there's some guidelines that make some of our special programs, PE, library, music, are impractical for us to accomplish. So for example, we are not to have common areas where kids move in and out of and then share that space. So we're not going to have our computer labs where we bring a group of students down and they may use the computer lab, because if another group of students comes into that computer lab, then we have just broken the cohort. The same thing with our libraries. If you open your library up and you bring multiple children into that library, then if there is a positive case, then we may have to quarantine multiple classrooms, and we're not going to do that. Specials like choir and music where we are singing or blowing into horns or anything of that nature is prohibited at this point in time. And so in order to meet those needs, we'll have to work at ways to do that in the general classroom as we move forward. We believe that we're prohibited, we are prohibited from exerting, doing exercises that exert a lot of energy. And so therefore we believe it's best to go ahead and use our recess time in order to get our PE and our activity in, so that we're not putting our students at risk in a PE classroom. So there are some things that we are meeting and being as safe as we can as we move forward with this, and just are not practical for us to do this school year as it sits now.
And following up on that, the teachers are really great at reading their kids and knowing when it's a good time for a music break or a movement break. You'll see music in the morning around the calendar or whenever they can around certain events. And then certainly movement breaks outside, but also next to their desks and during the day, just to allow the kids to be more learning ready. So even though they won't go to a location, there still will be movement and music happening. And certainly books will still have a great place in our schools.
Thank you. What are the protocols for if there is a positive COVID case in a classroom? What are the protocols that the district will follow, and how will the communication be handled? How will a parent know what the next steps are and that there is a case?
I think we could safely say that one of the things we pride ourselves on in Central Valley is open communication. And we have letters and voicemails that we send out. Each case, I think I've found so far, is different from situation to situation. We, like we've said, have protocols that we follow. We also have a huge support system at our main office, where if we have questions, we call Mr. Rowell, and he gives us additional things that we need to make sure that we are taking into consideration. But I think that one of the things I like to pride ourselves on is that no matter how tough a conversation might be, we are able to do that with integrity and openness, and parents feel comfortable with that.
Thank you, Mrs. Southen. If what would bring a school or a class, I guess more a school or the district back to virtual learning, and what would be the process for that?
So our health department guidelines are 2 cases in any classroom would cause the entire classroom to be quarantined. Then we would follow other measures that we have, similar to a whooping cough outbreak or of another outbreak within our schools. And if we get to 10% of a student classes or a student population, we would close the school down. Every one of those things would be evaluated as each of those cases happen. So as we work through this, very transparent. If you want to know how many cases are in your, if there is a case of COVID in your child's school, you can go right to our website and you can see that, because it is a very transparent process. Always in consultation with our Spokane Regional Health Department as we make these decisions in the best interest of our staff and student safety and our community safety.
There's been several follow-up questions on face shields, and I'm just wondering if someone could elaborate on what the details are on what on the guidelines for what is required on face coverings, if a face shield is okay or if it has to be that cloth mask.
So in following the guidelines that we have from the health department, the face shield is okay, provided 2 things potentially happen with that. 1, a student wears a cloth mask under the face shield, or the face shield has what's called a skirt or a drape attached to the bottom of it. Otherwise, so those are the 2 reasons in which or 2 ways we would allow the face shield to work.
Volunteers, if you need volunteers.
Yeah, we have a question on volunteering and donations. Some parents are interested in volunteering. What is the best opportunity for them for that? And also, if a family is interested in donating, is there any need that the district has specifically for PPE or anything else that a family could donate to?
I certainly can take the volunteer part. So in a typical normal year, we would have and encourage parents to volunteer in a classroom. Suffice to say, it's not a typical year, and so therefore classroom volunteers are not allowed. We have a strict guidance with how many people, students and adults, are in a classroom at one time to keep the proper social distancing. So in the event that we brought a parent volunteer into a classroom, that would then violate what we have as far as our plan. So that being said, we also have the opportunity for parents to work as a school volunteer, meaning they would not be in the classrooms, but they may be helping at the school, such as in an office, provided again that we don't have too many people in there, or in the hallways or something. If a parent is interested in being a school volunteer, then we encourage you to reach out to the school principal, one of these fine people here on the screen, and they can help to coordinate that and what the need might be at their school. But we are not doing classroom volunteers.
I guess I would ask you to follow up with your principals too. If there are always needs that our families have or individual buildings have. Like, if you have a desire to donate or to provide something for children or for a specific school, absolutely talk to your building principal, and they can provide what their greatest needs are, whether it's snacks sometime for children who might not have a snack when you're doing your snack break, or if it's coats for children who don't have them. So please don't. I guess what I'm saying is stay involved with your school. Talk to your principal, talk to your PTA, be involved in the same way you've always been involved, except we just can't have you volunteering in classrooms. But we certainly could have you volunteering as supervisor or screening, and we could work through those processes as well. We need hands on deck as we move forward with our in-person learning model. So please reach out, please stay involved. It is a different time, but we can still continue to be partners in the education of our children as we move through this.
At Adams Elementary, some of the ways we've allowed parents to be involved in the classroom is by donating their talents. And so we've had some parents who maybe have some artistic abilities and are able to zoom into the classroom, and the teachers display it on the board, and they're able to take the kids through an art project or read a story. And so if those are ways that you would like to be engaged, there are some creative ways that we've been trying to engage our parent community in the classroom via the Zoom platform.
Great, thank you all. Well, with that, I will kick it to Mr. Newton-Boom to close the evening.
I just want to thank you tonight for joining us. I know that we're in this unprecedented time where there's a lot of mixed feelings. You're excited to have your students be able to come back to school. You're also scared because you're just uncertain about this time. What I can assure you is that as you look around this monitor right now in your home, you have a number of caring individuals that are ensuring the best for our children. Yes, it is different. It will feel different. But what I can attest by going around and having been an elementary principal and elementary teacher is kids are far more resilient than we are. And while many of us don't want to go to school every day and necessarily follow all of these protocols, if you could see the excitements on the kids' eyes, maybe not their faces because we don't see their faces fully, but their eyes are telling us a lot. They are excited to be at school. And I have to tell you, I was very worried about how kindergarten will handle it. And I'm now learning that kindergarten may actually teach our entire system on how to do it right. And so with that, I appreciate your time tonight. Rest assured, there's all of these people around the room if you have follow-up questions, and we want to support and guide you and your family along the way. So thank you so much for joining us and have a great evening.